And here is literally everything you need to do a K swap.
Hold on.
Welcome to our K-Swap NC Miata build. Very excited for this one because this is a chassis I have a lot of love for. I actually did the 25 hours of Thunder Hill in an NC Cup car, had the time of my life, and prior to that I built a Mazda RX-8, which is basically a long wheelbase version of this chassis. So I can tell you from a lot of first-hand experience, it is an amazing chassis. As for where we sourced this NC, this is actually a crashed car out of Louisiana that we sourced from Go Moto. Well, he bought it at auction for $3,500, and he specializes in having a customer come to him and say, listen, I want to buy this chassis. He'll go out and find it for you inexpensively, usually at auction, one that's saved in a crash, and then he'll fix it up to your specifications, including giving it this really cool paint job in Ford Mustang Dark Horse, and updating the fascias to NC3 club spec, which I think really gives the car a, it just updates it, the style. We like the style of the NC3 the best. We should also mention it, he deleted the soft top and put on a DG Motorsports hardtop for us. So that was obviously all paint matched. And here is literally everything you need to do a K-swap into your NC Miata. This is a fully turnkey solution. Every single part you need to make your NC run on KPower is here. And to get this swap done as quickly as we can, we're trying to get this done in 2 days because Dave and Lew is here from KPower Industries. Thank you guys for coming up here.
Of course, thank you.
They have been bragging about how this swap can be done in like 2 days, no problem. We're gonna get it done. And if we don't get it done in 2 days, guys, we're gonna lose the shop. So watch as we get this done.
Oh no!
We're gonna give this what 16 working hours.
Yep.
Aluminum. Well, fellas, we're a couple hours into it, and bada bing, bada boom. MZR is on the floor.
Yep.
Any dramas you want to report? Pretty straightforward?
No, pretty straightforward. There's a few little tricks to getting it out. Removing the O2 sensor is going to be helpful. The more you can take off the motor is going to benefit you.
Pulled the gearbox. Now, a lot of guys would have been, well, just leave it all in one and pull it out,
Yeah, so a lot of people are going to want to suggest dropping the subframe with the engine and the trans all together, but most of us are doing this out of our garages or in our driveways. Not everyone has access to a lift. So we're trying to take an approach that's going to benefit the do-it-yourself guy trying to do this at your house. And the process that we want to do that in is to drop the transmission, pull the engine out the top, then we'll remove the subframe and we'll reinstall everything in that reverse order.
Seeing these two engines side by side is interesting too. They're similar in size.
Yeah, I mean, what's nice about the NC, as opposed to all the other swaps we've done, is that we're doing a four-cylinder swap in a chassis that had a four-cylinder with the exhaust already on the passenger side of the vehicle, which is like so much easier than the NA and NB where we have to cross the exhaust over and all of that. So just like the way things package in here is really nice.
And these make around 140 at the wheel on the dyno, and these will make anywhere from say 210 to 230 at the wheel, depending on how you dress them.
Yeah, there's a reason why we built a whole company putting these engines in different cars.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're not dogging on this engine, we just know that the potential with this is so much higher.
Hooked up. And you guys are free.
All right, so we have our K24 here, and we have a whole table full of nice shiny parts that are going to be used to adapt this to the NC. We also have our MZR engine here because we are going to borrow some things. We're going to borrow a power steering pump, an AC compressor, an idler pulley, and some assorted clamps. And what's really nice about this swap is we actually use the NC power steering pump and AC compressor on the K series. So you don't have to go source those components, and then you also will get totally factory feeling power steering, and the AC will operate just like stock. We also are taking a USDM water pump housing and putting it on this engine because it's a JDM engine. We've got a USDM Denso alternator, which is what we always recommend, get a Denso one. And that's really it. So Lewis is gonna start taking this thing all apart, and then we'll start adding components bit by bit.
All right, so we've got our timing chain all lined up with our timing marks. Honda's made it really easy for people. You got a dot right here, goes between the double gold links. You have a dot right here under this paint mark between those double gold links. And then down here, I can loosen this up. We've got a small little indicator on the crank gear right there. One gold link goes over that. We'll push our timing chain guide back into place, get our tensioner installed.
So good. That's it.
I'll just check the maybe.
That's it. Well, what we'll do is I do always like to rotate the engine over 360 degrees. So as we got the engine timed now, we're going to make sure we put on our little plate here. This is for our crank pickup. If you forget this, you will be hating life because your car will not start or run or do anything. So never forget that.
All right, so now that Lewis has the engine timed, I want to bring our attention to the oil pump because on all of the other KPower swaps, we swap over to a K20 style oil pump. The K24 oil pump has the big balance shafts in it, and when you swap to a K20 pump, what happens is you inherently get some more NVH into the engine, and so you're going to feel some more of that vibration in the chassis. It's just kind of the nature of the K series. It's really common. We sell a ton of these oil pump kits, but specifically with the NC, we wanted to build the most refined swap package we could, and so what we're actually doing on purpose on this car is we're retaining that K24 oil pump with the balance shafts. And when we combine that with the factory rubber NC engine mounts, you get a car that really feels factory. It feels like a stock TSX essentially. So you're not introducing a bunch of vibration into the car. And we've done a ton of track testing with the K24 oil pump. As long as your oil level is full, you have enough oil in the car. We've data logged oil pressure. We're not seeing oil pressure dips anywhere. And we're testing on like a good sticky street tire with good drivers going fast, and we haven't seen any dips. So the goal for this car is to build a nice car that you can drive to the track and drive home and have it be comfortable, has air conditioning. So the K24 oil pump is really what we recommend for most customers, and what we're gonna do on this car.
Wow, this thing looks like a whole new engine.
I know.
It is looking amazing, and obviously your intake manifold is a prominent piece on here.
That was kind of the goal, is make it feel very OEM, just have the throttle body not over here, but have it over here.
And we have gone with the stock injectors underneath your fuel rail. Mm-hmm. And we have some beautiful billet pieces here. What is this guy here for?
That's a power steering pump mount. That's for the NC power steering pump. So we'll do that very shortly.
And you've relocated the oil filter.
We have. We're making some clearance for an AC compressor over on this side. So that was just the cleanest, tidiest way to do it. We put a K20 crank pulley on. That I think is worth pointing out. That will underdrive all the accessories that we're going to put on next. That is required if you're doing this, because you don't want to spin this power steering pump from the NC way, way faster than stock.
On the back side of the motor here, we have your water neck.
With this, you can actually just use off-the-shelf S2000 radiator hoses.
Okay.
So then this goes to our coolant overflow. This goes to our heater core. We also swap the cam sensors. One of them is pointed this way, one's pointed out, and we find that if you just swap intake and exhaust, it just packages a little nicer.
All right, so we've removed the stock NC air conditioning pump. We've prepped it with this extra support bracket that we incorporated into it. And now we're simply going to install it to the motor here. Now that we have the AC compressor on here tight, we can go ahead and reinstall this idler pulley that was also removed from the factory NC engine.
Moving on to installing the throttle body, starting with this really nice adapter, I guess we could call this, which is O-ringed on both sides. It's got these nice brass inserts in it. You guys have done a really nice job on this.
Thank you.
And Sweet Lou here with the size medium hands is going to bolt it on.
Throw those medium hands in there.
Little thread lock on there too, I see.
Yep.
Always, yeah.
Never want
you can't over tighten these.
Okay.
You'll distort the plastic.
Gotcha.
Right, and this is prone to come, if you don't thread lock it, it's prone to just have the throttle body come loose and you'll have a big air gap and a big vacuum leak. So,
and we're not just going with like your standard billet cable throttle body off the shelf. You guys have gone drive-by-wire here.
Yeah, so the manifold by default fits a cable throttle body, but we do a couple different adapters, and this is a Porsche, like a Bosch 74 mil drive-by-wire throttle body, and that lets us, first of all, the car is drive-by-wire from the get-go, but it also allows us to take advantage of all the cool features in the Elite 1500 ECU.
Right.
So all the auto blip downshifts and no lift shifting, the whole traction control system is all built in. You can tune it right from the ECU. It's all incorporating all the hardware already in the car. So we retain this to go with a larger diameter than stock, and then we have all that stuff to play with.
Moving on to the harness, and wow, this thing is really nicely done. It is, I would say, a proper motorsports grade harness. The way you've used like this DR 25.
All the Raychem.
And I've seen you've like glued all the joints properly.
Yep.
Like it's, if you take HP Academy's course on how to build a racing harness, you guys have integrated all the right stuff here.
Yeah, we've got labels on everything. Yeah, and what's nice is this is totally plug and play. So this does not, there's no cutting, splicing, no running wires through the firewall whatsoever. You literally have your ECU connectors here, extra connector for our wideband controller.
Okay.
And then we've got 2 plugs that have to go to the chassis. This is to our wire conversion box that we'll show you in a bit.
Okay.
And then this goes to the NC fuse box, and the rest connects to the engine, and that's it.
So nothing goes through the firewall.
Nothing.
It's all just in the engine bay.
Exactly.
It all just integrates with the factory wiring.
That's it.
It all just works.
It all just works.
Guys, this is like dummy proof on my level. I'm so into this. And there you have it, a completely dressed K24 ready to go into the NC Miata. Lou routed up the harness here. It all fits up beautifully. And by the way, thank you K-Tune for this valve cover. It's just a nice finishing piece up top. Also have their oil filler cap on there. And by the way, we forgot to mention that the K-Powered kit does include this 2-in-1 Bosch sensor. So it does both oil pressure and oil temperature in one. So that's a really nice upgrade that just integrates perfectly into the harness and thus into the Haltech ECU.
Now what we've done is these guys have swapped out the OEM subframe for the tubular subframe that we have V8 Roadsters make for us. And this is basically a direct swap of an NC subframe, all the same suspension pickup points and motor mount position, steering rack, all of that. But what it does do is it gives us this additional clearance up here, as opposed to the factory subframe that's got a lot more material behind the rack. These engines have the oil pump. It's chain driven, and the pump is up here in the front of the pan. So we can't just simply put like a rear sump pan and cut a lower profile section of an oil pan here. The oil pan, or the oil pump, is all in here. So being able to run the factory oil pump gives us those benefits we talked about earlier. And then this subframe lets us slot everything right into the car.
Also mentioned that we have upgraded from the factory sway bar, which is quite a small one, to this Eibach bar. And the reason we've done that is I just know from previous experience with this chassis and with the RX-8 chassis that this car really does benefit quite a lot from a bigger, stiffer front sway bar. So while we're in here, let's throw something red on there.
All right, so now that we have the engine bay prepped for the engine, the subframe's all installed, we can do the final piece of the puzzle here. We've got the engine off the stand. Now we can install our K to NC adapter plate. This adapter plate's going to work with both the 5-speed and the 6-speed transmissions. You'll note it's about a 1/2 inch thick, and it's made out of steel. Some manufacturers will try to make adapter plates like this out of aluminum. but the aluminum is soft and it's really prone to stripping. Make sure that you've got the factory dowel pins in these locations. It is mandatory to have those in to get proper clutch spline alignment. What we're gonna do here is we're gonna make a small notch in the transmission bell housing to make clearance for the starter. So we threw a couple bolts in here just to line this up so we don't have to cut out any more than necessary. You can see we have just enough clearance in there for the snout of the starter to clear the bell housing. So at this point we can get the trans back off and let's get the motor in the car. So as you saw, we got our engine in. It fit with total ease. Actually went in easier than it was to remove the factory engine. Now that this is in place, we can go ahead and bolt up our lightweight aluminum flywheel. Weighs just under 13 pounds. Made in the USA, obviously. While our flywheel accepts a stock style clutch, in this case, we're gonna install the Spec Stage 1. It's an organic disc. But it will handle all the torque that this K24 can put out without any problems and should have pretty good longevity.
Hold on. I thought you put a condom on here.
You tore the rubber.
I did. I tore the rubber. Now the top is. I just don't. Way more annoying than this. So this is our NC K-swap header. We've got a 4 to 2 to 1 header. We've got cylinder pairings 1 and 4 together and 2 and 3, which is the correct, proper way to do it. This is inch and 3/4 primary to like a 2.2 inch secondary, 2.5 inch collector, and then we finished it out with a V-band O2 sensor bung here. And the nice thing about this header is it actually can be used in a lot of different rear-wheel drive applications. It's pretty compact. So we're gonna get that on the car here and you'll see what it looks like installed.
At this point, we can go ahead and install our power steering. It's going to utilize the factory line. Before it's set up here, now we're just going to slightly move it down to this location and get this bolted up. Now I'll mention again that this is the factory power steering line. One little tip I would like to give everyone is if you already have mounted the pump to the motor, you'll want to grind down about a 1/16 of an inch off the head of this bolt so you could fit the line on. If you don't want to do that, the other option is to get this line installed first, then go ahead and put the power steering pump on.
Because these guys wanted to engineer a full intake to exhaust tip system, you've built out a complete exhaust for this car, and it looks very nice. It's all 3-inch. Yep. It's all stainless. The challenge, of course, with a K series through a 3-inch exhaust is, oh my God, they're loud and they're buzzy.
The drone.
The drone can be a real struggle. So what have you done to mitigate some of that?
So yeah, some of that is eliminated thanks to, we've got a big resonator. We've got a biggest muffler I feel like we could comfortably fit while keeping the weight reasonable. And then we put the extra pipe in here that really brings some of that drone down a bit in RPM and eliminates some of that. So you still, I mean, it's still a 3-inch exhaust. It's still a racing exhaust,
right?
But it's much more manageable for a car that's driven to and from the track on the street or something like that.
We're at a point now in the swap where we can start installing our AC lines. You'll see I went ahead and took a few bolts out here and there just to give us a little bit more room so we could slip these lines in. We've got the lower AC line installed, so we can go ahead and install this upper one. Navigating it through here around the ABS pump. And with that, the AC lines are installed. Next step would be to take it down to the shop and get it recharged.
We have buttoned up pretty much everything in the engine bay, which means it's time to move on to the brains of the operation, both for Speed Academy, K-Powered, and for this car.
Absolutely.
And for that, we are using an Elite 1500.
Exactly.
And this very nice laser cut bracket that will show you how it goes in the bay. It's very sexy. So why did you opt for this ECU package?
So we went with a Haltech Elite 1500 for a few reasons. The biggest reason right off the bat is that Haltech has the CAN bus support for the NC chassis.
Oh, nice.
Which means you can remove the stock ECU completely, and you can have everything run on the CAN network in this ECU. So your gauges, your windows, your locks, all that stuff's going to work like factory.
Beautiful.
Which is a big deal whenever you do a modern engine swap, and you don't have that analog wiring like you're swapping an old Honda. You really need to think about that kind of thing. So, secondly, we've had such good support from Haltech.
Okay.
For our products, we use this ECU in our K-Swap BRZ FRS 86 chassis, and we've been really happy with it. And so it was just a natural way to do this car. But then on top of it, because it's a standalone, and because of everything that they have packed in here, we get a ton of extra features that you wouldn't normally have in the car. So auto rev match downshifts, no lift upshifts, traction control, all the drive-by-wire control, all of this stuff and much more is all built in here. We have flex fuel. We've got a CAN wideband built in here that's really nice. So there's just so much there that, yes, we're doing it primarily just to run the engine in the car, but the benefits we get from a performance standpoint is huge. So it's just kind of a no-brainer for us, and we're very happy with it.
And our final piece of the electronics puzzle is this little magic black box.
Yeah, this is our chassis wiring adapter. And what this is since the mating end of the chassis connector is not available anywhere, this is a NC ECU that is essentially cut in half and epoxied, and we have a super seal connector on one side added here that plugs into our engine harness. And so this bolts to the same location as the stock ECU, and then it allows us to just adapt all the chassis functions to the engine harness, and everything works like stock.
Time to install the intake. This is of course part of their kit, and I love the way they've integrated it into the factory location here, where it tucks inside the front bumper into a nice, sheltered cold air environment, low pressure air. It's all that good stuff. So we'll get this bolted in place. We're that much closer to firing this puppy up. Always exciting when the laptop's open.
That's right.
That means we're getting really close to firing this up. You're just starting, you're loading in your map.
Yeah, we're just putting
right?
our base map on to get things started here.
All right, guys, if we don't get this car started the next 5 minutes, we're gonna lose the shop. The landlord's gonna evict us, so let's get this thing fired up. Listen to it go. It's so good. I can already tell this is the lowest MVH K-Series swap we've ever done. There's no sense of vibration coming out of the engine bay. Just running smooth as a kitten. So good. Going from 6 to midnight, Peter. Well, guys, that is amazing. This thing fired up and just runs the way you would expect an OE setup to run. It runs that nicely. So thank you so much for coming up here.
Of course. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it was our
We had a
pleasure.
great
This has
time.
been a blast.
You're making Honda / Mazda nerd dreams come true here. I'm so stoked to get this out on the road and see how it drives. But of course, since you guys have a shop to lose and you don't want to lose your shop, I guess you got to hit the road.
We got to hightail it back to Chicago.
That's all right. All right, you guys go make more K-Swap everything.
We will do that.
And we are going to button this thing up and go for a ride. All right, PT. Time for a taste of K24 power.
And I am ready.
Do I do a little anti-social send off the line here? What do you think?
Sure, why not?
It's got some torque.
Wow, that's impressive.
It is. It completely changes the car. It feels so much more lively. And what really blows me away the most is the torque. Like, it's just got instant power everywhere all the time. So it's a completely different car. Oh. Yeah, it chirps second gear pretty hard.
Yeah. And I bet this thing, like the tack, this revs to like 8,200, right?
Yeah, I'm only revving it to like 7K. Not even using all the RPM yet.
This thing's probably got a lot more to go, but man, it's a ripper. It's just so linear and progressive, and it just pulls all the way up top. Wow, man.
Oh, man. I think I'm in love, PT. I think I'm in love.
Wow.
This engine and this chassis is just so good already. I can't wait until we really get it dialed in and get all the suspension and brakes and all the other good stuff working and get a tune in it. It's going to be so good, dude. It's going to be so much fun. This thing freaking rips, dude.
Dude, it rips so good.
And just like that, we've got a running and driving K-swapped Miata. What a fun car this is. I am so stoked on it. And obviously we have a lot more work to do. We've got to do suspension and brakes and much more. And of course, we will give you a much more detailed in-car experience, both on the road and at the track. So stay tuned for all of that. Man, I'm pumped on this thing.